Alright guys, so Far Cry 6, finally beat it. About time, right? So, it's time for the full review. Beat the whole game, talking about the story. There's gonna be spoilers, so if you haven't beat it or you care about spoilers, go ahead and leave now. You don't want to get it spoiled. So I've tried a bunch of different methods when doing reviews, right? Just spitting it all out and just going off the dome, trying to organize it a little bit, making it really organized, dividing the review into sections, and the best way I've found to do it is to divide it into 4 sections, and you can add and subtract sections based off the game. And so what we're going to do here today is talk about graphics, performance slash bugs, gameplay, and then story. Right, not in that order. But those will be the 4 topics. It helps it break it down easier. It also helps break down the video easier. You can watch a section or skip to a section you want to hear about if you don't care how the game looks. You can skip to the story section, all that good stuff. So, probably the most important one, debatably, in my opinion, is performance slash bugs. So that's what we're going to talk about first. So the game is about 30 hours long, depending on how you play it. You can do story stuff and just fly through all of that in about 15 hours, what most people say. The way we played, we went through and did every checkpoint, all the resupply things, the outposts, the treasure hunts, all of that stuff. So that took us actually almost exactly 30 hours. So you can probably push it to 40 if you get like every closed chest, all of that stuff. But that's really just for clothing. I'm pretty sure, almost certain, is the only thing we skipped. And then there's endgame content that we'll talk about later that we didn't touch. So there's that. So about 30 hours of gameplay. So, like I said, in our 30 hours, we probably had about 10 hard crashes and a couple of bugs here and there, right? Now, I'm not counting like AI running into walls or shooting at nothing. That's not a bug. That's just how, a majority of games with AI are like that there, right? Where you just kind of jumped. I'm not really counting that as a bug. That's AI stuff. It is what it is. Most games have that problem. I'm not going to really talk about that if that was the only thing that was here. But like I said, we had 10 hard crashes, and a majority of them on both the co-op player side, the player joining, and the player hosting, are when entering the hub area, the third person region. I'll talk about more about that later. If you don't know what I'm talking about, again, we'll bring it up later. I talked about it in my first impressions video, but it's a central hub where you can accept missions and upgrade stuff and put you in third person when you enter this area, and that breaks the game a lot, makes it crash a lot. So that was the majority of that problem, especially crashing, was just all in that area. All right. So the next big problem we had, and it's not a huge problem, it's just a slight annoyance, but for me, if you don't know me, the slight annoyances are what really annoy me. Like, something that shouldn't piss me off that much is what really pisses me off. And so what I'm talking about is the AI, not in terms of the enemies, but the AI brokenness when accepting missions, right? And so the smallest version of this problem, comes to if you're playing with a teammate, or even if you're not, when you're accepting a new side mission, whether it's a treasure hunt or an outpost or a checkpoint, that's the way you discover things. You talk to people, just random NPCs that are around the map, and they give you the location. But the problem is, if you do something aggressive, if enemies drive by, they stop what they have to say, and they fight and whoever they have to fight, or until you put your weapons away, and then they have to walk back to that same spot they were previously in. So that takes absolutely forever, right? Again, small inconvenience, but it's annoying. It's not unique to Far Cry 6. Far Cry 5 has the same problem. Other games do it. I just want to mention it. The bigger problem, 3 times we had AI where they just would not do what they were supposed to do. Here, this is a relatively early one. This lady is supposed to be leading us somewhere, doesn't. Alright, she kind of just like walks around in circles. Eventually, I go get in a car, and she decides, oh, I should get in a car too. So she gets in one. We have one where a priest you have to talk to at some point, dude wanted nothing to do with us, wouldn't talk to us. Alright, so just stuff like that. We tried killing her and over again, and then it got to the point where we were just killing her because we were annoyed. So, again, not the worst thing, but the game did crash a fair amount, and this types of bugs are plentiful throughout the game where the AI just doesn't want to cooperate. Again, it's not a big deal. If stuff like this doesn't really annoy you that much, I'm sure you can just restart checkpoint and move on. You'll be fine. But for me, it actually annoyed me a lot. Now from here, I feel like is a good point to transition into graphics. Alright, and so you can watch me play with photo mode while I talk about graphics. I mean, there's plenty of ways to show graphics, right? And so here, I actually have probably a good 30 minutes of just in photo mode trying to make thumbnails. And so this game has one of the weirdest graphics problems I've ever seen. So typically, I talk about this in my first impressions video, when you get to even mid Xbox One PS4 era, I'm talking like 2017, 18, right? The cutscenes still look significantly better than the gameplay, for the most part, in games that actually try in their cutscenes, right? Pre-Xbox One, you could not have gameplay that looked better than your cutscenes. Here, that is exactly the case. The cutscenes are so ugly, right? Other than Danny and Castillo occasionally, even sometimes he looks bad, Clara, I think, is the best looking character that's not Danny in the game, right? And so when you're in gameplay, it looks great, right? It's not the next gen, next game, the big top Series X PS5 seller, but it's up to standards. It looks good. The water looks great. The light looks good. Shadows are good. Plants are all good. The explosions are kind of weak, but you know, textures on characters on the map, it all looks good, right? I'd give it like an 8 in graphics, right? Does everything right. Doesn't do anything new or crazy. Doesn't have ray tracing on console, but it does its thing, right? In cutscenes, yeah, it looks like a last gen game, right? One, and this nobody's gonna care except for me, but it has film grain that, as far as I know, you can't turn off, because I'm almost positive I turned it off, because that is the first thing I do when I open a game, is I look for subtitles and I turn off film grain, right? And it's only noticeable on Castillo's cutscenes, right? All the other cutscenes, I didn't notice it at all. But only on his cutscenes is it super noticeable, right? So that just pisses me off. I hate film grain. I don't know why any game has it. I think it's stupid. It looks awful, but whatever. It is what it is. But just the characters, the map, the textures, everything in cutscene looks very last gen, right? But in game, what you're going to be spending 90% of your time in looks really good. So let's go ahead. I'm struggling to go gameplay or story here. I guess we can do story last. So what's the gameplay? Alright, what are you going to be doing when you're playing this game? Well, if you've played Far Cry 5, or 4, or New Dawn, or Kinda Primal, or 3, you know what you're going to be doing. Okay? And particularly 5. Alright? So, Far Cry 4 and 3 kind of are their own duo, and then 5 and 6 are their own duo, right? I mean, this is exactly like Far Cry 5. Even the map markers for like treasure hunts exactly the same. The way you go up to people and talk to them to get the location of things is the same. Not that that's unique to Far Cry at all. And so if you've never played a Far Cry game, let me enlighten you. All right. So you have your main missions, like every game ever, right? This is going to be some big set piece, like 2 boats, or some kind of factory, or like shooting down planes, or something, like a main mission type content, typically, defending a concert, stuff like that, where there's a bunch of enemies and you blow stuff up, right? So that's the main mission content, okay? Then they have the side mission content. So this could be clearing a checkpoint, which just consists of killing the enemies and destroying the billboard. It could be clearing an outpost, which consists of killing the enemies and destroying the billboard and the alarms. Or it could be a treasure hunt, which are my favorite things, right? Treasure hunts are like puzzles where you have to, for example, you have to find these boats that have codes on them that give you the code to this door. which will give you some unique gun or a piece of clothing or a bunch of resources, stuff like that. Just, it's basically very different from everything else that the game is, and just changes the pace, right? There's supply drops where you just go and kill enemies and get resources, and then there's races, which, you know, if my opinion, if you're not a racing game, you don't need races in your game, right? Or at least if you don't have heavy car mechanics, like Mad Max, for example. And I know that's so out of left field, but Mad Max is a good example of something that can have races, right? It's technically not a racing game, but the car mechanics are a primary focus of the game. Here, the races are fine. They can break, right? I have only did like 2 or 3 of them because they get generic. But one of the early ones I did, you're on jet skis and a helicopter from free roam, I guess is what we'll call it, right? That chased me into the race. So I go through this loading screen and everything to activate the race, and then there's a helicopter shooting at me while I'm racing. It'll destroy my vehicle, and then the race fails. So that was kind of it for me for the races. Again, I mean, it's a race. You drive from checkpoint to checkpoint, so it's not the most interesting thing in the world, right? So that's kind of how the gameplay goes. As you go around doing all these missions, you'll come across open world just crap, is what I call it. It's filler, right? And there's just stuff everywhere, right? And this is just an Ubisoft thing, right? So there's chests, like I talked about earlier, that are full of clothes, except this time, clothes give you passive and sometimes active buffs, right? Extra headshot damage, you know, you can take more damage, the ability to do some things that were previously on skill trees in other Far Cry games, like, for example, chain takedowns with guns or with grenades, stuff like that, right? So that's what clothes are for. There's gun crates, which I don't need to explain, I would hope. They have guns in them. This can be a generic AK, it could be a generic M4, or it can be a special AK that's gold-plated and has some kind of passive perk on it that makes it special, right? You also get resources along with those weapon and clothes, and just around the map of all those crates you get resources, which you heavily need in this game, because this game's heavily focused on crafting and point spending, I guess that's what you want to call it. What the hell does that mean? Right, I talked about it in my first impressions video, and so typically in Far Cry, there's 2 ways things really work. You just find weapons or just unlock them as you reach certain levels and level up. There's a skill tree to unlock abilities, all of that stuff. And then there's the more way they went in Far Cry 5 with a shop, right? Where there are guns, every gun is available to you from the very beginning, and the clothes are all just appearance-based. They don't have any kind of perks or buffs to them like they do in this game. That's new. And so the way you unlock things is you did missions, you looted, you killed enemies, you found money, you bought them. That was it. Very plain and simple. Here, for getting guns, like I said, you have to get those crates, right? And then if you want attachments, again, in Far Cry 5, you would just buy them with that money. Here, you have to find the right resources to add attachments and mods and all that stuff to your weapons, your cars, you know, your backpack, and we'll get to the backpack here in a second. And so, the way that works, or at least the way you think that would work, it seems like a good idea, right? It allows you to kind of force you to explore a little bit more on the whole world, get these resources, take them, and upgrade your guns with them. There's a problem with that, though. Early on, when you don't have great guns, and you're constantly unlocking guns just because of, obviously, it's early, so there are a large number of crates to get, right? The problem here is that the gun to crafting material ratio, I guess, is not great, right? So what that means is, let's say here I'm using the M14, right? I do this mission or 2, and I get enough parts to put a sight on my M14. But in that time, I just unlocked a new gun. So now, I just put those parts on my M14, but now I got this new gun, and I want to play with this new gun, right? So you unlock guns that you want to equip quicker than you're able to outfit those guns with attachments. So realistically, if you're like me, you throw a suppressor on your gun, and that's pretty much all you can put on it before you unlock the next one. Now, if you don't explore that much, and depending on the rate at which you progress, that's going to change. And once you hit, halfway through the first region, probably like the 6-hour mark-ish, this is no longer a problem. You still struggle with resources until you get a decent ways into the game. I would say until you get halfway, you're going to struggle with the resources. And this is exploring a lot, doing all the side missions, right? If you just run story, you're probably going to have this problem the whole way through. But I got to a point where I had just an abundance of resources. It didn't matter. I could change guns consistently, fully outfit them, and I'd be solid, right? But again, it's because I did everything, and I just had a lot of resources. And so that can definitely be annoying at the beginning when you're trying to get stuff and outfit your guy and your guns and all that stuff, but you can't get the resources for it. I know it was annoying me. And so another problem you have early on is that this game realistically doesn't have a difficulty slider in any way, right? There's story difficulty for IGN, and then there's normal, I guess, just gameplay mode. It doesn't really have a difficulty, that's just the only setting there is, right? And so the problem with this is that relatively early on, they're going to start throwing a bunch of helicopters and tanks at you, and unless you just balls to the walls, go free explore, and find every single weapon before you progress at all, which I don't even know if you can do, you don't have access to like a rocket launcher or C4 or any of that stuff, right? So you can't take these things out. And the only way to take out a helicopter, for example, right, is with special rounds you have to put in your gun that are used to penetrate the bulletproof glass on the helicopter, right? And so the problem with that is that gun is now not as good as taking out people and vehicles and all that stuff. And it's not like Far Cry 5, you can switch ammo types just in your weapon wheel. That's not a thing. You have to be at a base camp. So once you decide this weapon is for taking out helicopters, it's for taking out helicopters. If you get swarmed with enemies and need something with high damage against armor, you don't really have that choice. Now, obviously, once you get further and have access to a rocket launcher and C4 EMPs and all that stuff, not a big deal at all. Because a problem a lot of people who review this game I've heard talk about is that they have to have a different gun for all these ammo types. You need something to shoot down bulletproof glass helicopters, and there's soft ammo for people without armor, and armor piercing rounds for people with armor. I found that armor piercing rounds, obviously you need a rocket launcher for vehicles or something to take them out, but armor piercing rounds with a certain clothing set will one-shot everybody in the head. It doesn't matter if they're armored or not, right? It does the job. So that's just something I found interesting. Another thing I want to talk about with guns, there are a large selection of guns. But that being said, the two, I don't want to say coolest, because the coolness of it is debatable, but the two newest features or unique ideas they have, the resolver weapons and the Supremos, those are 50-50, right? I believe there's 6 or 7 backpacks and like 10 resolver weapons, and resolver weapons are just special weapons. The CD launcher, there's an EMP rocket launcher thing, crossbow, stuff like that, right? And so, especially the Supremos, the backpacks are the variety, it's awful, right? The first one you get is the rocket launcher one. It's the most OP one. It's the best one. It's so good. It auto locks onto people. It shoots just massive explosives. You can mod it to get different grenade types and make it do more damage and all of that stuff. It's great. I literally used it the whole game other than just trying out new ones. The other ones, there's some that let you one-hit melee people. There's self-revive ones. There's the flame one that they showed off in the trailers where you kind of just like jetpack up and burn everyone around you. There's an EMP one. There's one that I didn't unlock because you have to like find some stupid treasure where You have to, like, you can see through walls and shoot through walls with a certain gun. Like, they're all fine. Like, none of them are cooler than the rocket launcher one, so that kind of sucks, because that is the first one you get. Same thing with the revolver weapons, right? Like, the nail gun's fine, the EMP gun's kind of useful. My favorite one is there's a sniper rifle that shoots a burst of, I want to say, like 6 explosives that stick to things and then explode. That one's kind of cool. The flamethrower, I'm done with flamethrowers. Like, I've used them enough. I'm good. I don't really like flamethrowers anymore. There just wasn't a lot of variety. By the way, that just reminds me of this now. The teleporting, if you're playing co-op, the max distance is for next gen. It's not enough, right? Or on next gen, this needs to be further than 300 meters or whatever it is. Make it like 500 or a kilometer, please, or just, you know, don't have it at all. Obviously, I know why you have to have it, but it's very annoying. There were times where the person I was playing with just had to put their controller down. Now let me talk about the co-op problems with this game, okay? So, there's a couple, right? Really, the level of importance on them is 50-50, right? And so there's no skill tree here. I'm going to start with the most important one. And so the way you unlock the wingsuit is when you get to one of these hubs, the third-person areas. You get it once you build, like, your first building or something, right? And you get unlock the wingsuit. You need the wingsuit for a lot of side missions. They don't make you use it in main missions, I don't think, but you need it for a lot of side mission stuff that's timed, all that good stuff. And so the co-op player, the player who has joined the host, if they have not gotten to that point in their load, they do not get the wingsuit. And so you'll be doing a mission where you need to get somewhere from on top of a mountain that's timed, and you have to pre-plan and bring a vehicle for the second person, or just get into a vehicle with the first person. Another one, when you fast travel, this is what they added in Far Cry 5, you can airdrop from the air so you can just wingsuit places. Co-op player hasn't gotten to that point yet. They can't wingsuit. You basically can't use that feature at all. Right. So I don't know why the hell they would do this. Like, just give second player a wingsuit. I don't understand why. They were there with me when I unlocked that point in the game. When I unlocked the wingsuit, they were there. They did not get it. Another problem, the whole amigos. Alright, and I guess we'll just talk about this while we talk about the problem. And so there's Guapo, the alligator. There's the handicapped dog. There's the stupid chicken. Boom Boom. And I didn't unlock the last one. It's like the mountain lion or something. And so Guapo's good. He arguably might be the best one. Gameplay-wise, mechanic-wise, right? I mean, everyone just wants a dog to have a dog. But mechanic-wise, Guapo is probably the best one, right? He'll take people out, he can self-revive, they all have passive abilities. And so, from there, you have the dog, the handicapped one. He distracts enemies, he's fine, and so this was the problem where the person I was playing with, to unlock the dog, you have to pet him in this hub area. Basically anything in this hub area just breaks for the joined player, the co-op player. He could not get the dog. So that's just like a whole chunk of the game that's just wingsuit and an amigo that's just unavailable to them. And there you have Boom Boom. I'm pretty sure he spots enemies. I don't know, I got to the point where it does this really weird thing where when you play, even if you're quick resuming, the game just doesn't call your amigo by default. You have to manually go in and call him out when you first start playing, which just leads to me forgetting about it, and because they don't do that much, right? And so it's fine, right? He does his thing, and then the chicken's just stupid. Like, it's the ugliest looking thing ever. The mission chain to get it is way too long. I just out of spite did not use the chicken. Alright, so I'm talking about gameplay for a while. And so what I want to wrap up on is the main missions, right? Are they good? Are they crazy and over the top? Is the gameplay good? Is the guns feel good? All that stuff. So the game's split into technically 5 regions, right? The prologue, the epilogue, and then the 3 main regions, right? It's exactly like Far Cry 5, just with 2 extra regions, right? Actually, I think Far Cry 5 had a prologue region. You go there, you do missions, you kill the big bad guy that's owning the region, and then you move on to the next one, right? It's Far Cry 5. It's the same thing, right? Except the problem here, and I'm not saying that Far Cry 5, every single region had the best region, the best missions, all that stuff, but in Far Cry 5, I can tell you, the bottom left one is the dude, oh my god, what's his name? He, like, this is Far Cry 5, like, carved, like, people's sins into him or something, and then ripped them out of him, right? The bottom right region was the girl with the mist, Hope, or whatever her name was, and the top right region, I just remember, was like the crazy hunting dude. He had like a big sniper rifle or something, right? And then obviously the main bad guy. Here, I can't tell you. One of them has like this American, or he's Canadian actually, who's really funny, who says stuff I can't say, but that's cool. But that's it. Like, I don't really remember who the bad guys are of each region. The good guys, I think, is more who you're supposed to focus on, right? The first region, and I'm saying the first region because he suggests an order for you to do it, and you can do it in whatever order you want. But I went left, right, middle, right? So the first region, I don't really remember at all. The rightmost region is by far the best one, with El Tigre and he freaking the Legends of 67 or whatever, Legend 47, whatever, with all the old people that like did their own revolution. That story's the best. It's funny. The missions there are the best, but obviously that's just opinionated. The third region, in my opinion, it's 50-50 because it sets up the epilogue region, the final region. So in that way, towards the end, it's really good because it's setting up the end, right? But the majority of it, the whole like couples thing, and them setting up like a music band or something, you have to like defend her while she plays a concert. That's just boring, right? That region is probably the worst one, and so something that the game does a lot, and it's Far Cry, so I don't expect anything different. It's really, the gameplay is broken up into really 2 or 3 things, right? Stealth your way through here. I'm talking about main missions now. Stealth your way through here and do a thing without alerting any guards. They do like a couple of times. Go here and attack this place and kill all the guards or destroy this thing, or defend this place from guards and enemies, right? The problem with the third one, which is the one they do the most by far, is that they don't give you enough enemies, right? The concert mission, for example, in that third middle region, right? It's one of the last missions you get, and at least it's a turning point in a story. And the problem with it is you're defending this mansion, and there's not enough enemies, right? I mean, they throw like a wave of 3 or 4 guys at you, and then you wait like 30 seconds, and then throw another wave of 3 or 4 guys at you, and then you wait 30 seconds, and just over and over and over. And that's not enough. You can't be doing that, especially on next gen. You need to either throw everybody at me at once or consistently. Don't put those big gaps between the waves. It causes the mission to just be boring as hell, right? Got to the point where we were just using our pistols just to keep ourselves entertained because the game wasn't entertaining us with the amount of enemies it was throwing at us. Same thing with outposts and checkpoints. They don't, because of this difficulty and the way the regions work and leveling kind of levels with you, they don't get more difficult as you go across the map. It's not like the top left is the hardest and the bottom right side of the map is the weakest. The map just scales with you. Now, obviously, the epilogue region is the hardest region, but for the most part, there's not really a difficulty, to these regions or outposts or checkpoint or any of that. You go in, once you get a good set of weapons and the clothing mods and all that stuff, you have your stuff upgraded, you can go clear out an outpost and checkpoint not doing it stealthily in 30 seconds to a minute. So the gameplay is good, don't get me wrong, right? If you've never played Far Cry before, you're gonna like it. You'll blow stuff up, you'll shoot people, you'll drive vehicles and murder people and liberate people, alright? That's Far Cry, it's what it is, what it does, it's always gonna be, it's what it's always gonna do. Alright? It is what it is. If you've played Far Cry before, it's 50-50, right? If you played Far Cry 3, 4, Primal, New Dawn, and 5, or 5 and then New Dawn, like me, you're gonna be iffy on this, right? I think, like I talked about in my first impressions video, this is probably the last time they can do this. I don't think they could get away with a Far Cry 7 and it just being the same gameplay again. But that's just me. What do I know? So that's the gameplay. Let's finish it off. This overly long video talking about story. And so, the story, like I said, with the regions, is split into the prologue region, where you get introduced to the revolution, the main players in it, right? And then the 3 sub-regions and the epilogue, right? The 3 sub-regions, super simple. We need more people to help us fight bad guy. Go help them take groceries, they join us. That's what you do in all 3 regions, right? So it's not anything crazy, right? It's split into like a father-daughter rivalry in one region, old people talking about their past revolution in one region, and then like the trans couple in another region, right? So that's kind of how that's split up. None of them are really great. Like I said, the second one, the far right one with the gorillas, the 67 or whatever, that's by far the best one. The story there is at least halfway decent. I actually care about that one. The other 2, I oftentimes kind of just forgot about characters entirely, but that is what it is. The overall story, though, right, with frickin' my man, alright? So, I originally recorded every single cutscene with him in it, and of course, my Streamlabs broke, and now I don't have them, and that's also why all of this gameplay is from, like, the first half of the game. And so, here's the problem, right? All I know about Far Cry 6, right, from the marketing, is that Castillo, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his real name, he's in it. That's all I know. That's pretty much all they tell you. You do Revolution. So he's like the main focus. He's the main selling point in all of the marketing for this game. Problem with that is that actual screen time, he's in the game maybe 30 minutes, if that, I would say, because obviously you have to pick it up towards the end, right? In the end of the 3rd region, the epilogue, I think he has 4 cutscenes. And then in the beginning of the game, like the rest of the game, I guess that's what you want to call it, the majority of the game, he probably has another 3 or 4, right? There's one at the beginning of the game, and then pretty much at the beginning or end of each region, they'll give you a cutscene from him. And they're fine for the most part. Like, they're not great. It's not like, oh, he's the best villain I've ever seen in anything ever. It's good, it's decent, he's definitely the best character in the game. But he has all the good lines, obviously. But it's not the best thing I've ever seen, right? It's, oh my god, 10 out of 10. No, it's fine, right? If he wasn't a big name actor, I don't think anybody would be talking about him. It's not like he's super crazy or has any crazy freaking theories about insanity. So when he is there, is it good? Right? And so it's pretty generic, I would say. Like, the story, there isn't really a heavy emphasis on the story until you get to the end of the 3rd region. For the most part, it's just you are recruiting people, and that's it, right? That's pretty much the majority of the story until you get to the end. To the end, you start to, spoilers, you start to get poisoned, and then you gotta meet doctors, and people start dying, and blah, 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 and I'll give you another spoiler warning here in a second, but we're gonna talk about spoilers, so if I say spoilers enough time, people who don't want spoilers will click off the video. Alright, so you get to the end, and Clara gets kidnapped, or Claire, however the hell you want to say it. And frickin' she dies and gets shot in the face because Juan wants to kill the little kid, but you're friends with the little kid. And then I really thought they were going to make you kill the little kid. I thought that was going to be like the final choice, but that's not what they make you do. We'll get to that spoiler in a minute. And so, that's kind of, again, it doesn't really pick up until the end of the game. Right? There's story within the regions, but they're really not that interesting. And so, to end it all, right, let's talk the main story. I'm going to sum it up for you, right? If you just want to know what happens in Far Cry 6, you don't have to play the game or watch all of the cutscenes. Alright? Bad guy, dad dies. Bad guy is angry, so he becomes dictator, and he's bad guy. Right? From there, you go on, he's like training his son, like to be his successor and everything. And then you don't really hear from him for the rest of the game. You become friends with his son at some point. When you get captured, he saves you, whatever. Right? And then, here comes the interesting part. You find out that the dude, Castillo, the bad guy, he has cancer. Right? And he's dying. And the doctor that you killed was the one keeping him alive or something, or the kid killed the doctor, something like that, right? And so, it just kind of starts spiraling out of control. Once you beat that third region, or at least get to the end of it, it just goes crazy. Just like story stuff, just they start dumping everything on you, right? So the man has cancer, and he's dying. You have dinner with him because he kidnaps Clara, that's what I'm gonna call her for the rest of this. And so that happens, and then once that happens, you go to meet him, you have your dinner. Juan tries to kill the kid, and then Clara gets shot in the face. She is dead, and then you go to kill the bad guy, right? And then from here, you shoot through a bunch of people, and you get to him, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm dying," and blah 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 blah, and he's like, "Truth or lies?" And then freaking, you gotta protect your kid, or his kid, right? And he wants you to protect this kid. He's like, if I die, when I die, because he's dying of cancer, you protect whatever the kid's name is. I don't really remember his name. And he's like, and you say, yeah, I will protect him. No one's gonna kill him. And he's like, lies. And then freaking blast the kid. And I don't know if Ubisoft got the memo, but you can't do that. Like, I've been playing a lot of stuff for a long time, and I don't think you can kill a kid. I can't think of anything. GTA doesn't do it. Red Dead doesn't do it. Doom doesn't do it. I'm trying to think of just the most M-rated games I've played. I don't think I've ever played anything where the kid dies, or you can kill a kid. And you can't kill a kid in this, not like you actually shot him. But Modern Warfare, I guess, is the closest thing you can get. Right? And even then, it black screens you. But, yeah, he just blasts this dude. Point blank, square in the chest. Now, is it because he doesn't want the kid to become a gorilla and freaking join you? Or because that's pretty much the only explanation? So, he kills the kid, and then he kills himself. Which is kind of unsatisfying, if you ask me. I think, and this is just because this is what I thought they would make you do the whole game, a better option if they gave you a choice and freaking you kill, Castillo has to die either way, right? But like, do you kill the kid or do you not kill the kid? That would have been cool. Because if you're going to kill a kid anyways and just go balls to the walls, you might as well let me do it, right? So, overall, is it the craziest story ever? Like, is it like freaking Reznov isn't there? No. Is it decent? Does it, support you going around and blowing up everything and shooting everybody? I would say it does. Now, let me go ahead and wrap this up, because this video was not supposed to be anywhere near this long, right? So, we're going to break down each section, right? Graphics, it looks pretty good, right? Like I said earlier, like 8 out of 10 on graphics, okay? Bugs and performance. So here's my deal. My bar has been significantly lowered after playing Cyberpunk. Like, if the game works, that's a 6 out of 10 right out the gate, right? Which is very odd for me, because I typically don't go with that lowest standards, right? But this game does work. It's just buggy at times. So performance-wise, you have to keep in mind those crashes in the third-person zone. Plus, whoever thought of the third-person zone, like the hub, that don't put that in here. That's not needed. Take that out. All right. So they're probably like 7, 6. It's good for the most part. 30 hours, like I said, 10 crashes. That's not terrible considering all 6 of those crashes are probably within the same play session. So the length of the game, 30 hours, I think that's good, right? It's a good length to let you get in there, do your thing, get good at it, explore, but not for too long to the point where you're getting bored. Anything past 40 here, I think, would have been too much. But because I was getting to the point at the end, I was like, all right, let's get to the story. Let's finish this up. Let's get going. The gameplay, which is the majority of the game, is, for me, the weakest part, right? I give gameplay, and this is because I've played, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other Far Cry games, 4 other Far Cry games before this. The gameplay is like a 5. Like, the backpacks are fine, the Supremos and the resolver weapons are fine, but they don't add, I wouldn't play a whole game. I wouldn't say they're worth making a whole game just to add those 2 things, right? But, like I said, it's to support the story for the main, in my opinion. For me, that's what the gameplay is there for. Most people are like, oh, the story supports the gameplay. Nah, in these types of games, especially Far Cry, I don't really care about the gameplay all that much. It's to get me to the next cutscene, in my opinion. But, yeah, so the gameplay is fine. It is what it is. If you've never played Far Cry before, you'll like it. And then the story. The story is not great. It's not awful. I'm trying to think where I would rank it if I made a tier list. If I threw this on my tier list, like Far Cry, it's not better than Far Cry 3, obviously. And I don't know if it's better than Far Cry 4. I'd probably put this equal to Far Cry 5, right? Because Far Cry 4 has a better story. I think Far Cry 4's story is actually pretty good, but the gameplay, just because of time, right, is obviously better here. So, this is good. Like, the story does what it needs to do, and the parts that are good are really good, and the parts that are boring are Far Cry. So, now that I've said that about 19 times, what do I rate this game out of 10? Alright, and I gotta be careful here, because if you don't know, Spartan Vision got some hate for his Back for Blood video. Alright? People don't understand. Alright? That game sucks. Alright? No one's watching at 43-minute mark, so I can say literally whatever I want. I could literally get canceled. I could throw some cancel words around and nobody cares. But, my point is that, what do I give this game out of 10? And so, in case you've never watched any of my videos and you somehow made it this far, let me break down my scale for you. So, a 3 out of 10 which is what I gave Back for Blood. If you paid $60 for it, people need to freaking listen. 5 out of 10 was the Game Pass. If you didn't pay anything for it, I gave it a 5. Alright? So chill out. Alright? So going on a freaking rant here. Okay. 5 out of 10 is average, right? What's a 5 out of 10? I don't know. Back for Blood, if you didn't pay anything for it, that's a 5 out of 10. Alright? Like, it's super generic. I'll play it because it's free, but, like, I'm trying to think of a 5 out of 10. I want to say a Call of Duty game, but I can't think of any Call of Duty game that's a 5 out of 10. It's either significantly lower. This is spoilers, by the way. Or significantly higher. Right? So, it is what it is. 6 is above average, 7 is good, 8's great. To get above an 8, you really gotta be like a Black Ops 1, or like a Battlefield 4 to get above an 8. So Battlefield 2042 has that potential. This definitely doesn't. Is this average? No, it's above average, even though it's repetitive, and I've played it a million times. The gameplay that's there is above average. If I go buy 10 random ass games off of the Microsoft Store, this will be better than most of them. So it's well above average. And 6 is above average, so it's above that. Is it great? I don't think so. So I'm not putting it at 8. I think that's way too high. If this is your first Far Cry game, this could be an 8. For me, don't think it's an 8. I think 7 is a good place to put it. It's good, right? It's worth $60. It's fun. It'll let you can spend some time with a friend playing it with the whole thing co-op. It'll get you to that next release, which I think is Guardians of the Galaxy, at least the next thing I'm reviewing. So, it is what it is, right? Far Cry 6, first game of the season review down. I mean, technically, Back 4 Blood came out first, but I already pretty much reviewed that in the beta video, so I'm not going to count that. But, it is what it is. Next up, got Guardians of the Galaxy, and then Forza, and then Call of Duty, and then Battlefield, and then Jurassic Park, and then Halo, and then Dying Light 2. I think in that order exactly. Not positive. But it is what it is. You guys let me know if you hated this game. It's freaking everyone giving this game like an 8, 9, 10 out of 10. This game's not that good. Right? Far Cry 3 isn't even a 10 out of 10. And that's by far the best one. It's not the best one now because it's old as hell and looks awful. But when it came out, right? Far Cry 3 is like a 9. 8 on a bad day. Right? So I'm just ranting at this point, trying to make this longer for some reason. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think of the game down in the comments below. If you think I suck and should kill myself like a Back 4 Blood, if you're a Back 4 Blood hater coming from that video, get out of here. And I'll see you guys on the next one.